I'm so happy today. Today it's early in the morning on a Monday morning, but it is a wonderful day. We have a guest here. Her name is Eraina Ferguson. And what I'm going to do is this. She's sparkled a lot of light on the job search and the job hunt, but she's also manifested something that is so powerful that I want her to share it with you. So I want you to meet my Authentically You guest today, Eraina Ferguson.
Hi, it's nice to meet you so much. Thank you, Carmen, for having me. I'm always so humbled to be able to share my story in hopes that it helps other people. And it's still being written, right? Just times that I've been interviewed or I've connected with people around my journey, I think is so important since the beginning, like really since the time that I had my special needs daughter and I wanted to pursue my career and everything. I've been transparent. I've been an open book because I even wanted to look back and see the evidence of the journey. So it can inspire others and I can see my progress.
Wow, that's great. So let me ask you this. For the audience that doesn't know you, I just want you to give them a little glimpse of who Eraina is, and then we're going to talk about your full circle story.
No problem. Well, my name is Eraina Ferguson. I'm a wife, a mom. I'm a tech professional. I'm in product marketing. And yeah, I'm a mom of four and two bonus sons. And my husband is awesome. He's in emergency management. And we built our life here for the last couple of years in North Carolina, but we were in Los Angeles for 7 years, and we just had a glorious time there. And yeah, it's been a really, really great experience. I am now in tech, and I worked hard to get here. It was funny because if and when I write my book, my second book, I'm sorry, if when I write my second book and I talk about my career journey or it hopefully inspires others, I wanted to name it something as It Shouldn't Be This Hard, right? But there are certain parts that have been hard and there are certain parts that have been easy. And so hopefully by sharing my journey today, I can help others be comfortable in their now, but not complacent, and be motivated to move forward and to write out real tangible goals to help them get to where they are, because it's so worth it.
Wow. Well, let's start back at the beginning. You went to school and you had a career direction. And can you tell me what that career direction was going into college and then coming out of college?
Definitely. So thank you for that. So I started college. I went to a private school. A lot of people don't know I started at a private Christian Brothers school outside of Chicago, about 45 minutes, called Lewis University. I originally was going for education, and I was on the dean's list for 2 years straight. I was studying on Sundays in the library. I enjoyed school. Though I had went to a private high school, one of the top high schools for African Americans in private in Chicago, we call it the Black Beverly Hills 90210. It was called Providence St. Mel High School, and everyone went to college. 100% were accepted since 1980, over 30 years of tradition. Small and unique in that, one of Oprah's favorite high schools. So I was tracked for college. My sister was a page in Congress at 16. She went to Ivy League school. So none of this was like out the norm. This childhood, I was tracked. I had a great family. And then my parents moved to Florida. Suddenly in my sophomore year, I also got pregnant that year. And it was just, it was tough. That's when the worlds collided in that, where I had to make some tough decisions. So I transferred to University of Illinois at Chicago. I actually was a criminal justice major in undergrad. And my friends were going on to work for, being tracked in criminal justice professional roles like the State Department and such, but I couldn't work those hours. So I said, let me hasten and finish my degree and pivot. So I worked a couple part-time jobs while I was in undergrad. And honestly, in my senior year, in order to make sure I was able to leave Chicago, because I had capped out. I had lived downtown. I was used to downtown. My dad was in the suburbs, professional, but I knew there was nothing else for me there. That's also what I learned, that If you're somewhere and you don't even want what the top is, then it's time to go. And I felt like the
Mhm.
top in Chicago wasn't enough for me. I felt like it wasn't
Mhm.
going to be enough for my palate long term. And there was something on the inside of me that knew that. So in undergrad, I applied to be a Teach for America, to be a teacher,
Mhm.
Teach for America. I was not accepted into the program, but in the corner
Mhm.
of that, it said, if you did not get this, apply for NYC Teaching Fellows. I applied for that and I
Mhm.
got that. And within 3 months, quickly I was accepted. And within 3 months, I had made the decision to move to New York.
Mhm. Wow. Wow. So when you started teaching
Hmm.
in New York City, you have moved from Chicago, big city. You're now in New York, big city. What was it started your path on saying, hmm, is this for me?
Great question. So, I moved to New York City and it really makes me so gracious and emotional that 20 years ago, June 30th of this year, I moved to New York City.
Mhm.
2003, $1,000 I took. Actually 1,100. It was the deposit from my apartment. My apartment was 550. It was double that. I took that. My mom booked 1 week for me at the New Yorker Hotel on 34th Street, right across from Madison Square Garden, and we had a one-way ticket. I then moved to Brooklyn in a brownstone, and one of my cohort fellows from the program was my landlord. And thankfully, I got into the wrong class by accident, met him, and then got into the right class. But I called him for help because he said, if you ever need anything, let me know. And I said, we need an apartment. And we rented a beautiful brownstone. And our old neighbor was actually Chad Bossman. I have pictures with him. He was an actor at that time. I called it the Black Brooklyn Renaissance. Amazing time. Taught in East New York, Brooklyn. The year was tough. We woke up at 5 a.m. I had to wake up, and with that teacher's program that I was with that program with NYC Teaching Fellows, I was also going to school at night with my special needs daughter as a single mom. So the neighborhood really kept me. Amazing people, I tell you, just glorious people. Just that the community so strong. I had never known such level of togetherness, cohesiveness in terms of Blackness, professionalism, and talent, all coupled into that one space. I didn't even know what I was a part of. And it was phenomenal. So, needless to say, I loved it. It was intense and I sacrificed so much. I took my daughter in a livery cab every day to East New York. I taught. I would put her on the school bus at 7:05. I would go upstairs and teach. I would get off and go get her. And then we would go to Brooklyn College. And funny enough, that when I was at Brooklyn College, people would ask me, well, what school did you go to for your master's program? I would say Boston College. I had never heard of Boston
Mhm.
College. I would accidentally say Boston College. Like, why? 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 Because I ended up deciding at the end of that year, and it was kind of in some ways decided for me. It was such a hard year. I was in the fellows program. Taylor's autism was getting more intense. I decided to take a year off. And the
Mhm.
break was good for me. So I took a year off and nannied for great families in the neighborhood, raised Taylor, made sure that she was set when she came home from school, like got her just on this better path of making sure that things were good in terms of her deafness and her autism. And I ended up applying to do a master's program as just a master's program. I applied to Harvard and I applied to Boston College. And so, as you can see, I got into Boston College, full scholarship. But the admissions director, Arlene Reardon, reached out to me and said, change it from high school teaching education to elementary. And she
Mhm.
did that. She said, we will have lucrative scholarships for you when you get here. Just trust me. So I
Mhm.
packed up all my stuff. The neighbor gave me some sweet potato pie and some chicken, and I headed off to Boston.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So this for you, what I heard is you had sort of like little angels on your shoulder each step of this way. So your support system actually rallied around you. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Definitely, what I found for people is what I found for myself. That's good advice for the listeners that people should do is when you get somewhere new, be very intentional. People talk about COVID-19's, the lockdown and the quarantine and having to be safe at home. I learned how to be safe at home a long time ago because here I am in big New York City with no family and only to trust strangers. And I was very intentional about my circle. I had my church. Actually, we went to Hezekiah Walker's church for a bit. We went to Brooklyn Tabernacle for a bit. I had the local coffee shop. I had the local corner store where they knew me. And I had a local business owner in the area. Those people became the people that I trusted at a basic level, never to keep my child, right? Never to go beyond the boundaries of, regular associate relationships. But they became my core in a lot of ways. Even when I was lonely, I knew I could go to the store and get a hello from a stranger. I never felt alone in the world. I knew that there was someone looking out for me. So sometimes psychologically, you have to make these organic communities because we were always strangers wherever we went. And we built the same thing in Boston and the same thing in Connecticut. Even if you're not uber religious, most of the time, if you go to a church or a worship community or a place of sanctity, you keep your privacy, but you in your minds know that I get to hug someone. I get to connect to people. I will not be alone on the island and implode, right? And so they were amazing community, like very great, still friends to this day, still people who look out for us. And I'm grateful for that. And we would have a place to call home on those holiday weekends when we wanted to come back from Boston and Connecticut. We took the train down and came right back to Brooklyn.
Wow. You know what? The story of how you tell it is so impactful because when people think what you did is you realized Chicago didn't have what you needed. And you decided and you went somewhere where you didn't know anyone. You basically said, I'm going to be a sponge. I'm going to go here and I'm going to learn. And then you also had your daughter who you had to think about as well when you're going into a new city. So that I commend you for that. I really do, because those type of challenges would stop anybody. But what I heard is it didn't stop you.
It was my fuel. I wanted to build a life for her. I was determined. When they told me $40,000 is the highest I can make in Chicago, like when they told me that I didn't grow up poor, so why not? Why decide to be poor now? Why decide to limit myself? I'm allergic to the struggle. I'm just allergic. I know that there's a better way. There's no way. There's just no way. I'm just not struggling. And that's not to say that we had all this money and we were wealthy or what have you, but whatever money we had, we made it work. And I realized that being a single mom is like being on your tiptoes and being 5'3" as I am, and being on your tiptoes and the water is 5 feet. And you literally are standing on your tiptoes. You're like a permanent ballerina to make sure your feet never touch the ground. Because if you go below, you could drown. And that's what it was for me financially and career-wise. I refused to get off my tiptoes. I refused to rest. I would take her stroller and take it up flights of stairs. We had no car for years. And so I just refused. She was my fuel. We lived in a beautiful brownstone. It was nice. It was clean. It was safe. And providing that as a mom has always been the core of it all, because I had that growing up. I didn't have anything less. And so if I only did what my mother did, it means that I had to rest, regroup, have my community, and keep going.
Wow. So in 2020, you did something that really brings this full circle. In 2020, you wrote an article about your dream job. Now we're in the midst of pandemic, and what was happening there, it was a pandemic shift, and then it was the great resignation. People were were saying, hey, I need to stay home with my children. I need to focus and get back to what is some normalcy, whatever I can do. What did you do? What happened with this article?
No problem, no problem. So I almost want to back up a little to 2010,
Okay.
Boston College, Yale. We can talk about Yale later, but I decided to get a second master's at Yale. That was pivotal. I ended up at Yale in the doorman building, post Yale after I graduated. Opened up a storefront in downtown New Haven to give people advice on their projects, a little consulting business given to me by the city of New Haven. You know, handsome guy from high school that I knew that I was a cheerleader. He was a basketball player. Inboxes me. You gotta have a cute profile picture, ladies. Just keep it classy. Keep it classy. And he inboxes me. He whisks me off my feet. I move back to Chicago only for him and not to stay. And not to stay, only to grab my husband and bail, which I did within less than a year. And we ended up moving into Los Angeles. And so we're in Los Angeles. I have multiple babies back to back, 2 years apart. And between 2012 and 2020, I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. But when I tell you, I wrote, I went to events, I did articles, I did a TEDx event. I kept my portfolio strong. I wrote for Ebony. I wrote for Today's Show Parent. I wrote for different freelance projects, pretty much free. I did some smaller consulting projects to keep myself relevant because I knew one day I was going to be able to one day go back to work. And so fast forward to 2020, it all hit the fan. It was the fall, and I am not sure if I wrote this in 2019 or 2020 because it might have gotten recycled to 2020, but it was an article for Fairy God Boss. It's a job seekers platform that has been bought out by Muse. Muse is owned by a Yale. As far as started, Fairy God Boss is one of the co-founders of Yale, female owned, love it. And I always stay close to the safe female platforms, and Fairy God Boss is one of them. So I got to give them their props. They gave me so much hope. I was able to be a contributor for them. And without having gone into anyone's office, without having broke into tech yet, I wrote an article about my dream job. Because instead of talking about the woes of being a stay-at-home mom and wanting this, I wrote what it would feel like, and I envisioned it. To pull out my garage, to leave out, to go to work. And the hilarious thing of it is, and I will wait for the question with it, to what you want to hear what happened next, is that it all happened in such a way that my dreams were fulfilled to a certain extent beyond my expectations. But I wasn't pulling out my garage and I wasn't going into an office. So I look forward to hearing the follow-up question. But yes, I wrote the article for Fairy God Boss in 2020 happened.
So see, before I ask that question, here's what I heard. I heard you say you were shaping your career and you were doing it for free. There was a free thing that was going on there. Now, how did the free manifest itself to where you are now?
Sure. And I look forward to sharing my portfolio is my portfolio, and it's actually maybe in my bio on LinkedIn. I'll actually make sure it's in there so people can see my portfolio. My portfolio just makes me cry in gratitude for the times I was writing for free. I mean, I was an assistant for less than $30 an hour for Tina Lippert from Cream Sugar. I was working with Ebony Jet for barely anything. And like I said, but it for me, I always needed to make sure I had a boss, a check-in, and someone who I can check things off of. And whether you're a PTA mom and you're writing the newsletter, whether you are working for your local church as volunteering, whatever you're doing can be morphed into what you would want to do later in tech or in a day job career is relevant. Like keep it, be excellent at it. So yeah, but that Today Show Parent is still one of my favorite platforms to write on. I need to write something else, and I need to check in with Fairy God Boss as well.
So okay. So now this is the question. 2020, you wrote this article, and your dream job was what? Tell me what it was.
My dream job in the article, wasn't it working in tech? Was it working in tech? And then, but guess what? By 2022, last year, almost this time, by April 2022, I had 2 tech jobs at $100K each working for Meta. I decided last January that I was going to work for Meta. I decided that, and I did. It took me 3 months to get the job. I had the role for about 3 months. I decided to end the contract early. It was a 12-month contract, but I was also working for Udacity, which I came in from really grinding. 2020 happened, and it was probably around September. The kids were home remote, and we hired a nanny to help out with the kids. And my husband, I called him one night while he was at work late, and I said, I want to go back to work. I said, there's something in me that just is not feeling fulfilled. It's no way. He's like, well, we're in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, the kids on the computer, it's like, I don't care. I want to go back to work. And so I said it out of my mouth, and the CEO of a small digital marketing company reached out to me via LinkedIn. And she offered me a copywriter role for her company, and they were pivoting over from a paper company to a different brand. So I was pivotal in that. Me and my boss wrote 75% of the copy for the page. The company is called Ali, and that female CEO gave me my shot. And I woke up at 5 a.m. It was an East Coast company. I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning, put on my snuggly slippers, went into my daughter's room, who's deaf, who is sleeping. She can't hear me typing. I have the computer facing this way on the wall. This was in LA. And I'm typing away. And I was on a time clock, 45, 50-minute intervals. And I wrote, and I loved it. And then I got off the computer, put her on the bus, and opened up the door for the nanny. My husband worked down the street remotely for the company, his consulting company. The firm that he worked for was still open, but he was in their office only, and everyone else was at home. And the nanny kept the kids, and I kept writing through their lunch break, took an hour break to feed the kids lunch, put them down for a nap, and then do a couple more hours before I got my daughter off the bus. Wow. And so that's how we did it. And my days ended at 2 p.m., but it was pivotal between 5 and 7 that I got the most work done possible. So my coworkers didn't even wake up until, I started at 5. It was like always later for them. So they weren't even awake when I started. So it was just great. Like I just really, really was intentional about making sure I got the time in. And so it was really, really a great time.
Wow. Now you wrote an article for People of Color IT.
Yes.
And I want you to talk a little bit about the article, because the article, that's how I found you.
Yes.
I read that article and it just blew my mind. So tell me about the People of Color article and why you actually wanted to really share this story.
Thank you. Because, it is how it happened was so interesting, because I had to use my relationships and my reputation that I built and my portfolio to get a contract role with a great company called Lever, which is an HR tech platform. I love Lever. I love their platform. I love writing for their blog. I got to work on their content marketing team to write content for 7 months, which was great, which is a great, pivot from that. Still a great hourly salary. I got the hourly that I was worth from another woman of color who knew my value, who gave me my hourly, like over $100 an hour. And so just being intentional about still the pivot and the in-between. So I wanted to tell my story because sometimes you see people in their LinkedIn photo in that circle. And you don't know that what their journey was to get here and how they're still intentional about what their next move is in their career, how they're pivoting. So as I move into product marketing and I'm enjoying the product marketing piece, yeah, my story is still being written. I'm in third and fourth round interview processes now. I ideally would accept an acceptance letter within the coming weeks. I already spoke it that it would be March that I would get an offer letter. And I just ended my contract with Lever. And so I wanted to be authentic in my story. I didn't want people to see the shiny and see that the physical product that I create, or see me on Press Here, or see me on television on Black Love, or see me in these spaces and not understand that it was a story that started in 2003 in a hotel room, like calling out to God for help, connecting with strangers to make sure that my life was moved forward, and that it takes time. It takes excellence. It takes focus. It takes pauses and pivots. And though some of the things are not quite there, right? That me pivoting also was to make sure last year that I paid attention to detail with family, having one role at a time, which is the smartest, guys. That's the smartest. And as my husband, he works in Louisiana as the director of emergency management for a university down there. And so I had to pivot to make sure that I was managing my girls, managing my special needs daughter, and my career as well, but never giving up my career. I told my husband, I'm sorry, like, not that he wanted me to, but I was explicit about, I have worked hard for this and I'm not going to pause and I'm not going to stop. I will like reshape it, but I still want it. So it's some fun stuff happening that I'm working on in the back scenes as well. And those will continue to come into fruition, into the public light. But for now, I'm grateful for like all of the pivots and all of the changes. And I love People of Color in Tech. They're a great platform. I was able to share my story there. I just emailed the CEO and sent him a DM actually on LinkedIn and just said, hey, I love your platform. I used to get your emails, and I remain motivated around tech because I got your emails and I saw my face on the other faces of other women of color. So it's exciting. I'm excited.
And let me ask you this, because this is how I see it. I used to be one that I would never reach out to anyone. I would read the article, and the article to me was bigger than life. Now I reach out, and it's like you and I are friends, because there is a common thing that happens. You need the inspiration. You need to be grateful for what you do. That gratitude comes into play. And you need to find that sense of peace when you're doing the work you love. When I find that I see people who aren't enjoying it, that's like for me my call to really say, how can I help you and show you that there is a way? And once you get on the path to finding the work that you love, you're going to be, that peace comes over you like nothing you've ever experienced.
Yes. I think the peace that you felt in the article was the resolve, the ownership, and taking back my power to say, I've had to make changes. I've had to pivot. Some for dealing with, tech companies that are changing, whose business model may have changed, dealing with their budget stuff. Sometimes it's not fair. Sometimes you're going to have to pivot. A lot of people are going through layoffs. It's not fair. It doesn't feel good. But once you rest and you regroup, and I tell people I'm a big advocate, like self-care has almost become like a dirty word that people use it. How can I say? They use it in a way that self-care is privilege. I'm going to be honest. It's a privilege to practice self-care. It shouldn't be that way. But the truth of it is some people can't practice self-care because of the financial and the physical responsibilities that they have. They can't practice self-care. I have to make sure I'm making my appointments properly and doing the things that I'll also translate into self-care. But I will take a weekend. I will travel. I will go, whether it's with my kids or by myself, to like a nice hotel and do the spa. And I will spend the money that I work hard for on myself, not other people or not other things. I will intentionally keep my space, my ears, my energy to what I want, and say no and set boundaries so that I can focus in on what do I really want? what do I really love?
Mhm.
And if I'm not loving what I'm doing, I did feel that I wanted something more challenging than just content. So that's why I pivoted to product. And I love product. I love building things. So I pivoted to the marketing aspect of that and just took the courses as well to learn what does that look like. And so take the training, get the experience. So yeah, it's so many things that are layered into it, but I love what you're doing. I had a great connection with the coach who didn't coach me for a long period of time, but the advice that she gave me via the video screen was, yeah, you're at 200,000. You can easily
Mhm.
get a senior role at 200,000. You're a leader. You are worth
Mhm.
that much. You don't have
Yes.
to take something less. I needed to hear that. So I love what you're
Mhm.
offering to people in that, to remind them of their value and to help them find the thing that they love and search that out and be okay in that excellence. And sometimes you just need
Yeah.
someone across the screen to say, you're worth it. You're worthy. You are worth six figures. You don't have to take 92,000. If you take 92,000, be okay with leaving them in 6 months. Be okay with
Exactly.
that. You get
And
that
others,
offer. Blah.
that's right. Your strategy is in the fact of your journey isn't over. Your journey just starts when you take control. Most recently, I talked to someone and they kind of contacted me to let me know they had moved into another position. But the power behind it was so beautiful that I said, "You're a boss," because
Mhm.
you didn't take what they wanted. You didn't do what they necessarily would give. You asked for what you wanted. And when you ask, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
They say no, and then you have a decision to make. But the beauty of it is that once you take control and you manage it from the standpoint of you knowing what your worth and what your power, what your value is, you control that destiny. No one else controls it.
You do. You control that destiny, and then you're able to be honest too. I also learned a lot from my time in Udacity, and that I learned a skill, UX design. I love UX design. I love the tools. I love Figma, all of that stuff. Would I love building that every day? Do I want to use this tool every day? But do I want to use this tool to help me think differently about the role that I am in, or the role that I'm going to, or the role that's my bread and butter, which was content at that time?
So you call that the good fit? Is
The
that
good
what you?
fit, like the good fit, like when I was a teacher and we would go to the library and have kids pick out their just right book. It's not too hard. It's not too easy. It's just right.
So here's what I heard you say, and it sums up in one word: be authentic. That's it.
Yes. Yes. Be
There's
authentically
nothing.
you. Yes.
Yes. Once you get in touch with the you and you know your power,
Yes.
it can take you places that you never ever thought that you could go,
Yes.
ever.
There's someone who wants you and who you are. You are loved. You are worthy. There is some organization, some company, some place that you want to receive you, because if they want to nitpick, they're going to nitpick anyway.
Anyway.
And there's a certain level of politics. I'm not saying you don't have to play politics. It's what it is, even in all Black organizations. But
Mhm.
it's a certain level of politics and X, Y, and Z. But you use your intuition and your gut, and you listen more than you speak, and you will learn the game very quickly. But you do have to be authentically you. I receive that. You cannot, because at some point it would become exhausting to be on a Zoom call and, okay, I get in this, okay, so what do I have to be for you? How do I have to make you
Mhm.
feel better about being you? How
Mhm.
do I have to? I can't. I'm all on the internet. There's no way I can play down who
Mhm.
I am. I got 5 pages on Google. But so being authentically you is the thing. And you learn that with age in a way that
Mhm.
brings you a certain level of peace to say,
Uh-huh.
I'd be excellent on your team, but if you
Yep.
don't want me, I'm sorry for that. You're like totally
Mhm.
gonna miss out. And your
Mhm.
organization is gonna be average. But if you want me on your team and you want to excel, let's do this together and let's win and let's change the world for the better. But if they got insecurities, they're gonna torture you anyway. So you want to be authentically you. So I love what you're doing, and I can't wait to listen to your other podcast and just connect around your audience.
So tell me now, you know what? We could talk for hours, but what's next for you? What is next for you? And it doesn't have to be career wise, it has to be life wise. Because I see there's so much out there for you.
Thank you. Honestly, I decided 22 was a verb for me. 2022 was a verb for me. I made the most money I've ever made in my life. I thought I reached that pivotal point, particularly when I had both roles and I saw the value that I can add to teams across the board. It was great. And then it shifted, and then it shifted again. And so, and as it ended, I decided that my word for 2023 would be joy. It would be joy, that I would live in joy, that I would appreciate my days, my times, that I would not let anything that happened to me or in my day to day shift my joy. So I'm excited about that piece of 2023. I'm also working on a project. I built an app without code while I was 9 months pregnant with my now 6-year-old called Glue. And so I'm excited that Glue has turned into a business. I made an LLC in 2018, and now it's morphing into some things. And so I'm excited about that. I'll be looking for an agent for my second book, which I'm thrilled about. And just affectionately titled My Good Life Now, because my first memoir, My Good Life, which you can find on Amazon or mygoodlifebook.com, is it just is 100 pages about the stories that I told you about Brooklyn, about raising my daughter on my own, me getting married, me doing TEDx. It's just a quick snippet of my life. But My Good Life Now, I just want to be so impactful. I'm super thrilled about that. So those are the things that I'm working on in 2023. And they don't feel like a lot because it's been 20 years. And I've had pieces of everything to morph up into just this moment. So
wow. So tell me now, what in this, as we close this conversation out, what advice would you give to other women? And I'm going to talk to you general, women that are retiring, maybe say, I don't want this anymore, I want to do something different, or people who are going through career change. What is that career 2.0 change? What advice would you give them?
First of all, to first rest in the fact that things will be well. Even if you only got 10,000 left, even if you only have 5,000, even when you have the pending responsibilities, rest and know that just take a little break, or even a larger break, but try to take a little bit of time just to rest and recharge. That's the very first thing that I recommend to anyone, is what I do anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed. I just say, I'm taking a nap, or I am taking a rest. Second is to get organized. Like call the assistant, call the house cleaner, get us at least a section of your space organized so that you can clearly think, and just really focus. And that will help lead you to your next path. Take some of those physical artifacts that you have, like a book from your professional development, your physical resume, take some stuff off the shelf, dust it off that you have that means a lot to you, and just sit with those things. Sit with them and just kind of see what you've done. And also it'll help you lead you to what's next. See what they're saying. See what that energy is saying for what you're doing. I used to recommend people take some of physical papers that they've done or their resume and just walk around it. Just walk around in a circle to say, what is next? What feels good about this? What can I do? How does this morph? And so it also allows you to remember your accomplishments and all that you've done. So I say those 3 things are really pivotal to really kind of helping you and to decide what you want to do next. But find your bag, because you don't have to struggle. And if that means that you're consulting at $10K a month, do that. If that means that you are find your money quickly, because that will help ease the stress of bringing you into the things that you love, that you can be authentic with, instead of struggling financially. The struggle is so hard to concentrate when you're struggling. So really try to find your
Mhm.
money in that. So that's my advice. And just enjoy, live in a peace, take care of yourself. Yeah, that's my advice for these overlapping pieces. And there's so much that the previous generation has to give to the other generations, and so many people that need each other. So stay connected to people as much as you can, virtually or in person, to make sure that you are not only giving but receiving just support.
I am honored, Eraina, to have you today. And the last question that I always ask my guests is, what makes you authentically you?
I think my experiences. I think the humility of being on in that subway with that baby. My experiences make me authentically me. It is so hard to be someone else. And what I experienced, I don't need to be anyone else. Who I am is enough to impact people, to love people, to do my job. It is my experiences make me authentically me. They make me humble and gracious. And that's what I want to carry just for the rest of my life. I don't want to work hard to be me. I want to be able to do that. So I thank you for having me here. I didn't mean to cry, but that's
No,
what me authentically me, that my experiences have been such that I'm not sad about them. I'm gracious. I cannot thank you for having me. Like, I love to share my story. I love to connect to people. I love the opportunity